this is Kedilytics and welcome to today's session. In today's brief video, we're going to look at two kinds of cluster analysis, latent class analysis, LCA, and latent profile analysis, LPA. We will be able to discern that these two key methods are just ways or statistical ways to understand and observe subgroups within the data set. And so if this sounds like something that you're really interested in, then we want you to watch the video right to the very end so as to know what these are, their key differences, and some clinical or practical applications of these two concepts. And so we want to understand what these two key terms are. So basically, the LCA and the LPA are used to identify hidden subgroups within a given population or data set that you have. And so, for example, you have data set on the behaviors of students or high school students and their physical activity level. Now, you want to classify their behaviors into subgroups so that you can be able to say that when you have this kind of behavior pattern, then it's likely you're going to have this outcome in terms of physical activity. Then you may want to apply this LCA and LPA kind of classification methods. Now, the LCA is based on categorical variables, and the LPA is based on continuous variables. Basically, that is a key difference between the two methods, and it can be used in the health industry, psychology, and even social sciences. And so it has a broad scope of utility. What are the key differences between the LCA and then the LPA? The differences lies in the inputs and the output variables that we obtain. So generally for LCA, our input is categorical variable, and we expect an output of class probabilities. An example can be smoking status, either you smoke or you do not, and your diagnosis of a particular kind of disease outcome. So it's either the disease outcome is present or is absent. And for LPA, our input is usually continuous variable, and our output is a profile of the means. An example could be the BMI or body mass index, depression score, physical activity levels, which are all continuous variables, and we can use to predict the profile needs. Now, the key concepts that one can use these latent analysis to achieve are basically, as we mentioned, the unobserved categorical variable or subgroups, and the outputs of the statistical analysis gives us some indices that we can use to, so to speak, kind of know the performance of each of the classes and thereby settle on a particular number of classes for optimization of our analysis. So basically we have AIC, we have BIC, adjusted BIC, we have entropy, among others. And then these models are basically used to choose the number of the classes or the profiles that we want to use. And it is also important to know that these clusters that we come up with are usually mutually exclusive. And so there's no intersection or, they are all distinct groups. Now, what are the steps that one has to take in order to kind of perform LCA or LPA? Basically, 4 steps. We prepare and develop our codes, and then we kind of estimate the models with different numbers of clusters. Then we kind of compare the models using fit indices, just as we listed in the previous slide. And then we go ahead to interpret and assign class profile membership. And then once you have the individual clusters, then you can name them cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3 based on the individual behavioral patterns that are unique for each of the different clusters. Now, in terms of research, health research specifically, we can have its utility in behavioral pattern recognition. We can have it in chronic disease risk stratification. We can have it in tailoring public health intervention and also identifying multi-morbidity subtypes. And so if these are some of the statistical analysis you want to do or your research objective or questions, then you may want to look into LCA or LPA for your statistical analysis. Now, this is just a sample to kind of demonstrate how we can apply this to key distinct statistical concepts. And so for the Charles data set, so Charles data set is the Charles study is a data set that it's carried out in among the Chinese population, and the goal is to kind of measure all the physical activity levels of aged people in China. So that is it for Charles data set. And so using that, you can perform LPA or an LCA in the sense that if you are looking at variables such as the BMI, the visceral fat, physical activity, depression score, then it's best you consider the LPA. And your goal could be to identify the profiles of physical and mental well-being among this aged population. And if you want to apply the LCA method, then you want to consider variables such as the presence of some diseases, alcohol intake, or even smoking status. And then here you're going to classify the class groups of elderly by their health, behavior, or risk. And so basically, these are the key distinct features between the two concepts, LCA and LPA. And so if you find content such as this useful, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel. If you are new to the channel, turn on the post notification bell. So whenever a new video like this is made, you will be one of the few people to be alerted, and also like and share with all so um, we can all benefit and champion the statistical journey. Until we meet again on our next one, this is Catalytics, and it's a bye.